Hey everybody, this is the fourth here, and in this video I wanted to let you know about another option you might have when it comes to reference mixing. And this is doing reference mixing with stems. Now, normal reference mixing is a pretty straightforward concept, but without a lot of experience, it can be a little bit hard to tell exactly how individual sounds or sound groups act in the mix. You might not be able to tell exactly what frequency ranges certain sounds take up, or exactly how loud those sounds should be in those frequency ranges. As you gain more experience, this will become much easier, but as a beginner, it might be helpful to use a reference that you can inspect on multiple levels. And reference mixing with stems can allow you to do just that. So in my playlist here, I have the stems for We Are One by Cruella, as well as the full song. And you can hear if I alternate between playing the stems with playing the full song, they sound very similar. They don't sound exactly the same because the full song has been mastered, but they do sound very close. And this is what you want. You want the stems to sound very similar to the full released track. Because if they don't, then they might not be the best reference to use. So as long as, all the stems playing together at the same time sounds very similar to the full release, and they are the stems of a song that you think is mixed very well, then it could be quite helpful to use those stems while reference mixing. And, do keep in mind that in order to get the stems to be at a similar loudness as the original track, you'll probably have to take down the level of the full track. And you can see that here, all the stems, this one isn't a stem, but all of these stems are at the original level, and this one, which is the full song, has been reduced a fair amount. And the way you would use these is pretty much the same as you would do in normal reference mixing. The only difference is that using stems allows you to isolate certain sounds or sets of sounds to get a better idea of the role those sounds play in the mix. So I could solo just the kick of the reference track and use, any visual aids that I needed to, like spectrum analyzers, and kind of, analyze the original kick, listening to it, looking at it in the spectrums. And then I can set the level of my kick, I can EQ it, compress it, or do whatever is needed to get it to sound as close as possible to their kick in terms of loudness, frequency balance, dynamic range, and all that. The amount of reverb and the width of the reverb on individual sounds is something you can hear a lot better with the stems than you can hear if you only have the full track, for example. And you can hear that in this. You can hear the reverb. And, in the full track, you don't really hear the reverb on the kick. So, you can just hear a lot more detail in the individual sounds or sets of sounds when you're looking at stems rather than looking at the full track. And so, even though you don't have the stems for every single sound in the track, you can usually isolate a lot of the sounds at some point within the stems. So, I don't have a separate track for each of the percussive sounds. I have the kick track, and then I kind of have the general drums track. But if I wanted to, really reference the snare drum, for example, I can get it isolated pretty well. I could kind of focus in right on this section of the track, get a really idea of how this snare drum fits in the mix, and I could work on my own snare to make it sound similar. I can hear kind of the punch. If I needed to, I could use a spectrum to see what level that punch is at. I can hear the reverb. And all that kind of stuff. But even if you can't isolate every single sound, hearing a certain sound with only a couple of other sounds will still give you a better idea of how it sounds on its own than listening to the full mix well. Things are isolated pretty well in this track. Maybe not the hi-hat so much in the drums. But, the vocals are isolated very well. The synth sounds. In this part, it's pretty busy, I guess. But you can get an idea of how all the synths sound on their own, at least. And in this part, the synths are pretty well isolated. You kind of only have one sound playing at a time for the most part. And then same with the effects. You might have a couple sounds going on, but it's not too many at once. So that's pretty much it for this video. I did just want to share this with you because I figure it's something that not everybody might think of on their own. And if you are having a bit of difficulty doing normal reference mixing, this is an option that could be helpful if you are able to find the right stems. Unfortunately, you won't be able to find the stems for every track, but there are a lot of different stems available because of remix competitions and all that. So hopefully you'll be able to find something useful if you feel like you need it. And even if you just kind of want to analyze professional tracks, it's a really great way to see what they do in their mixes, how the different sounds play a role in the full mix. If you're having trouble making a big room kick, you could just kind of look at this and try and replicate it a bit more. So even if you don't use stems as a reference while mixing, they can be pretty great learning tools. But yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Hopefully you will get some use out of that.